What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another draft episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob at Riches and 13, joined by the man that needs no introduction, Mr. Quincy Carrier. How you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, fantastic. We're recording this on Monday for anybody that's curious, and we just got the edge rusher news, so I'm pretty jacked up. I'm not even going to try to say his name because I know I don't know how to. So yeah, we're just gonna call it fair from there.
We'll just wait till the media guy releases the pronunciation.
Exactly. I tried last night on a preview show, and I know I butchered it, and I was just kind of, whatever. We'll go with it. Sorry, man. We're gathered here trying to talk about some draft crushes for us. Going into the the draft season and all that good stuff. I dive too deeply into these things, so I'm very very particular when it comes to these draft crushes. I develop them every year. I got lucky. We got my draft crush last year in Alex Wright, so I finally got that situation going. But we're gonna go through some guys tonight. So Quincy, I'll give you the floor, man, for your first guy.
Oh, my first guy here. I'm gonna go with a lesser known guy. I like him a lot, though. Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I thought he looked pretty good there. Now, the thing with him is I think he's a guy you would move inside instead of play at edge. I think in the 3-4, he's probably a 3-tech, and I think in the 4-3, he's also a 3-tech with some versatility to go outside. But good quickness, good burst. I like his use of hands. Not the lengthiest guy, not the most physically impressive guy, but he's just good at football. And I like him a lot coming out of Bowling Green.
Yeah, I think I wrote something up on him the other day that I just said he has violent hands. Like he you're not getting into his body if he has anything to do with it. Like he comes out just firing. I'll stay on the defensive interior. Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, man. This is the I think if you're looking for a true, because I think he can slide out, but I think he can play one tech. I think he can play at the nose and that sort of thing. And he's a little bit more athletic than you think he is, but he's an immovable object in the middle of the line. The Browns did not in any way, shape, or form have an immovable object in the middle of the defensive line. And I think Keanu Benton, for his size, well over 300 pounds, he gets off the ball really well, plays with great hands. He just understands how to anchor the defensive line against the run. And I think he encapsulates what they didn't have last year. And I think if you can get him out of Wisconsin somewhere on day 2, maybe you'd be a much better team.
Yeah, and Keanu Benton's one of those guys where you look at the measurements of him and he doesn't have anything that pops off the tape, but then you look at him and you go, that's a big dude. Like he seems to have a good frame on him. So I think he can get even bigger and stronger. I think there's a lot of potential and upside with him, especially there. And I'm seeing here, was he a former wrestler? You know how you want those guys in trenches, former wrestler there. I don't think in college he did, but he definitely wrestled in high school. And those guys are usually good in the trenches. Is Mike, Mike Davis? No, not Mike Davis. Mike, he used to play for the Bengals and the Packers.
Oh, no.
Big anime guy.
Oh, no. I know who you're talking about. Oh, God.
Well, him. Somebody going to remind us in the comments. Look, in 5 years of YouTube has taught me, somebody will remind you of your mistakes in the comment section. So you, Mr. Genius, in the comment section, go ahead and let it be known down there, whoever that man is. I appreciate your genius. But, yeah, he probably going to end up being good. If he was just a little longer, I think he'd be a first-round pick.
Yeah, he had such a great Senior Bowl, kind of getting more attention down there, and he tested relatively well, but he's one of those guys that, like you said, he just doesn't freak you out about one length, height, any of that, and you're just kind of like, yeah, but I think he's one of those guys that has staying power in the NFL. I think that's definitely. I'll step out of the way and let you hop on for your number 2.
I'll go with another kind of under the radar guy. I like Ryan Hayes out of Michigan, left tackle. I think he's a tackle in the NFL. He just has good technique. out there when you watch him play, and he's very sound, and he never looks like he's getting sped up. Now, he's not somebody who's really being talked about as like a hyped up day 3 pick. Even like it seems like you might be able to get him in the 6th or 7th round. I don't know if he becomes a starter, but I think he has a higher than average chance of a day 3 pick from left tackle of becoming a starter. I think he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle there. I think honestly, the whole Michigan offensive line is very underrated. As far as draft prospect goes, and I don't know why we aren't hyping them up more. We've seen them do this against some of the better teams in college football, Penn State, Ohio State. I understand the TCU game was what it was, but that wasn't because they couldn't block. That was just because of other things that Michigan has issues with. But that still doesn't subtract to the job that offensive line did all year. And when you beat Ohio State off the strength of your line of scrimmage like that, 2 years in a row, that tells me something about that program in the interior.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that pains me to say, but yeah, that offensive line is one of the best. I'll take Michigan lately and Wisconsin. If you got offensive linemen from either one of those schools and they're hanging around on the 3rd round, yeah, take a chance on those guys. They know what they're doing down there. I'm going to go with my first under the radar guy. I'm going to go with Zach Kuntz, the tight end from Old Dominion. He's originally a Penn State guy before he transfers over to Old Dominion. Doesn't really do him much this year. I think he had like 13 catches, but he went out and scored a perfect 10 RAS score, the relative athletic score at the combine. And I'm just saying, if there's a guy on day 3 that is a borderline freak athlete, he's 6'8", like 252, and the dude can move. He's explosive. He did well. Obviously, he did well in all the testing because he got a perfect 10. So he got the highest so far in the history of the relative athletic score. And I'm just thinking, like, you're talking about trying to figure some guys out on day 3, bet on traits. And Barry has shown people that score high on RAS are guys that he really likes. And I think Kuntz at his size, 6'8", he's got the levers to be a good blocker. I think he needs refinement there, but I mean, he's got a pretty good coach in Cleveland if he were to come there and try to need to learn how to be a little bit of a better blocker. So I think Kuntz as a day 3 tight end target would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the math on draft picks gets weirder as you get deeper into the draft, right? Yeah. Because I do think it is a mistake to just go traits only in the first 2 rounds of the draft. Right, where you're like, oh, you get blinded by the traits. It's proven to be a mistake. If somebody is a day 1 or 2 pick, they can't just have traits. They have to have at some point showed that they can apply those traits to consistent success in the football field, or else you have nothing there, right?
Yep.
Then you get to the 3rd round where some of these things can mean more. Now, I think if you have a combination of traits but not a lot of tape, like if you can run and jump, that's a combination of traits that is enticing. If you could just run or if you could just jump, you need production, right? That's why I didn't like the Anthony Schwartz pick. He could just run, but he didn't have production. He's not like a jump guy. He's not like one of those spark athletes. He can just run. I don't have much use for somebody who could just run. But when it comes to the later round guys, that's when you're like, well, you would rather have traits than production, right? Because very rarely there's a guy like James Harrison who has a lot of production in college and then he becomes very productive in the NFL, right? But oftentimes, if you can see that the traits aren't explosive enough to translate to the second level, then that's usually not something that's going to pan out. Like Nate Orchard is a great example of a pick that was all production in the 2nd round, no traits. And by the time he got to his 3rd year, a 2nd year Myles Garrett, 4th year, a 2nd year Myles Garrett out here teaching him how to pass rush when he was the pro ready guy and Myles is the athletic one, right? Like Myles Garrett, like, nah, you need to put your hand. A lot of like what we assume is a floor when it comes to a prospect is non-existent, because that player is very skilled in that system. That doesn't mean that skill translates to every other system and every other level of play. If I learned how to play tennis really well at the rec and get away with my athletic flaws at the rec and play tennis, that don't mean I'm going to be able to do the same thing at the US Open, right? You know what I mean? We have seen this. You have gone to the gym and played against guys who are really good at the rec. They ain't on the team though. Right. Like, and that sometimes can be what you run into with some of these players in the late rounds.
Yeah. It's a crapshoot sometimes at the end. I mean, you're just kind of thinking, you just got to find one thing to bet on. I think when you go to the really later rounds. So who you got number 3?
Number 3 for me, I'll go Osagun Oluwatimi. Like him a lot. I think he's going to be a day one starting center in the NFL. I really wouldn't be surprised if that were the case with him. He is just very good, very solid, played at 2 different schools, was all conference at 2 different schools. All American, I think, at 2 different schools. He definitely was all American this year, won best center award. I think he's really, really solid. I'm surprised there's not more hype on him. I guess there's just not a need at center, and the market is just kind of down. Seems like you can get him in the 3rd round. Before the Posick signing, I was thinking maybe you can go get this guy in the 3rd round with one of your comp picks and handle that problem, because I don't think just having Nick Harris is a solution. Or maybe they still decide to go after that. I don't know. But with Posick under $6 million, it's not really a big a need. But I like him a lot there, Osagun Oluwatimi. I think he's going to be a really good center for somebody.
He was one when I thought Posick was leaving before obviously today. I really didn't think they were going to retain him, but the bottom seems to have fallen out on the center market. And he was a guy that similar system. I think he moves really well when pulling and he can play that zone and in some of the wide stuff and the gap stuff. And I think he matches exactly what the Browns needed before they. I didn't
think Posick was going to get that big of a deal. I remember talking to Corey, who Corey thought he was going to get $10 million. And the reasons Corey thought he was going to get $10 million makes sense. My thing was like, I don't know how much other teams think he's worth. Like, I get that we think he's worth $10 million because we've seen it. But if you look at this from the perspective of somebody looking from the outside looking in at him, he had 1 good year, 12 good games. And then he was next to Joe Bitonio and Wyatt Teller the whole year. How much of that was him, right? Like, I just didn't think somebody was going to really invest a lot of money in him, given that. And I thought we could get him for cheap. That's why I thought he was gone once people tried to tell me like it was 10 million. No, we're not 10. Nobody's doing 10 million for him. Somebody wants to do that. That's good for him. But probably 5-6 million. Like, I would keep him on that number. And that's the number they end up getting him at.
Yeah, I thought it was. I really liked the deal once it was announced today. I got a guy that kind of caught my attention at the combine, so I had to go back and watch some more of his tape. Trey Palmer is not getting enough respect, the wide receiver from Nebraska. I think, especially when you're talking about these fast wide receivers, which is what I'm focused on for the Browns. That's what the missing piece is. He's not really a slot guy, but he does play some slot. He's not a primary guy there, but he has really nice size, 6'1", nearly 200 pounds. And he really uses it on tape, and he can fly. Don't forget the 4.33 speed that he showcased at the combine, and you can see it on his tape. He reminds me he's a little bit slimmer, but he reminds me of a quicker Donovan Peoples-Jones in the way that some of his tape is. Those contested catches, goes up, high points the ball, is able to fight through a physical defensive back because he's got that size. He's got the size. Like, that was part of the appeal, I think, with Anthony Schwartz, that he was over 6 feet, he was 180, and he could fly. He's all those things Schwartz was, a little bit bigger, and has production. So he's got he would kind of be a do-over on that pick in my mind. And I just think that he's a guy that should be getting day 2 buzz because speed will always get overdrafted. And I think a guy at over 6 feet at 190 plus pounds that can run a 4.33, it reminds me a lot of that physical, the gifts that Christian Watson had coming out in last year's class that I really liked. And I think Palmer needs to get a little bit more respect in the sense that I think he could be a complete package in a couple of years.
Interesting you mentioned Christian Watson, because I think there's another guy who in his class who reminds me of Christian Watson, Andre Iosivas from Princeton. Yeah. 6'3", I believe he measured it at the combine, 205, and he ran 4.43. So it's a low 4.3 guy, pretty fast. And then he did pretty well. I think his 10-yard split was 152, and it was his 3 cone 6.85. That's not great, but it's not terrible. The size, speed, I think is similar to Watson. He's older, but he played in the FCS, which like Princeton, the Ivy League, that's a whole nother level of the FCS. Like that's not like high level football even for the FCS. Like it's kind of I think they send maybe 1 or 2 teams to the playoffs every year, where like the Missouri Valley sends like 5 teams. So like if you're ever looking at FCS prospects, those dudes who come from North Dakota, they kind of get looked at the same level as like somebody playing in the MAC or in the eight to like the group of 5, because like that's how tough that conference is in the FCS versus like the Ivy League, where there's 1 playoff team. So it's not like an even dispersion of things. So every conference has their SEC. But he's a pretty good player. I don't think he's going to go very high in this draft. So, I mean, I would just like to take a flyer on him. He has size. This wide receiver room does not have size. What was his vertical? 39-inch vertical. You know what I mean? Runs pretty fast, explosive enough. Maybe he could be somebody who can adjust to the ball in the air. Maybe he could be a big play guy. Maybe he could develop into something. I would love to take the flyer on him. And he's Ivy League, right? I mean, who better to get the Ivy League guys than Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, who understand playing Ivy League football. And the transition is going to be to the NFL, because both the coach, well, they never played in the NFL, but both the coach and the GM are familiar enough with the NFL and familiar enough with the level of competition he's come from.
All right, man. Well, I'll wrap this up with my last one here real quick, because I know you got to get out of here. And I like Adebawore, man, the pass rusher from Northwestern.
Yeah, I like him too.
Oh, he just plays with really like his technique is where I really like it. His leverage, his ability to play with leverage, and he understands hand placement. And I just think he's really strong, and then he goes into the combine and just tests like a freak of nature at his size. He plays inside, he can play outside, and I just think that Andrew Berry loves these guys that can play multiple different positions, and I think that that's exactly what this guy does. And Adebawore would just goes out, has a great Senior Bowl, goes out and crushes the combine. You go back and look at his tape, and you see all the stuff that you have seen in this draft circuit. I mean, he gets off the line of scrimmage tremendously well. I think his hand placement, his leverage, I've already talked about those sort of things. And I just think that he uses all of that both as a rusher and in run defense. And I think he can give you both facets of the game, which is something the Browns, they need everything. They when it comes to defensive line, I know they've started to make some moves, but like you need guys that can play in multiple different positions, especially for the depth process. And I think if Adebawore sits there at 42 and you don't want to take a wide receiver at that point, I think you got to snatch him there. You're not going to get him.
Yeah, and then my last guy is going to be Marvin Mims. Now, I think people think I like him to the point where I'm like, oh, we must draft him. Or like, no, I'm not like that with any player. Like even with Perion Winfrey last year, I liked him, but I wasn't going to lose my mind if they don't draft him. But yeah, I like Marvin Mims here. I think he ran 4.3 in the combine. I was shocked by that because I didn't think he would run 4.3. I thought that would be one of the things that would hold him back a little bit. Ran 4.3. I think he averaged like 20 yards per reception. Remember, he had terrible quarterback play last year. He was getting passes from the booty man, general booty man, and who else. So not like he had Caleb Williams throwing him the ball anymore. So he did great there. He's a very vertical wide receiver, very big play guy. But what I like about him the most isn't just that verticality that he adds to the offense, but he has an ability to go up and get it at 6 foot, right? Like his ability to adjust to the ball, catch it at its high point, and make a play on it is something that we just don't have in this wide receiving core, right? Donovan Peoples-Jones will make a great sliding catch. He will make a great catch to keep his feet in bounds, but he will not make a high point catch to save his life, right? David Njoku can do it sometimes. Amari Cooper has never been that guy to do that. You need somebody who can go up and get it and go up and get you a big play. And I think Marvin Mims, he's going to be that in the NFL. The ball skills are incredible. The adjustment to it is incredible. The control, the body control that he has, incredible. And the hands ability that he has is incredible. And he has speed, and he's used that speed to get himself very open at Oklahoma. It's funny to me that like Marquise Brown went in the first round and like Marvin Mims might not go until the second round or maybe even the third round, when I think he is a better prospect than Hollywood Brown ever was.
Yeah, he does all the things that Hollywood Brown does. He does better.
He has the ball skills that Hollywood Brown never had, right? Like that's the thing that we want Hollywood. Like we spoke all this time. I want him to be bigger and have better ball skills. This guy comes out, he's bigger, he has better ball skills, he's just as fast, and we're just like, oh yeah, cool. Like
And I think too, his ability to create off the catch in the open field too. Like, it's just, I've seen so much of him sliding into the third that it's like, if you want to trade back and get him later in the second, I think you can do that. But I'm not sitting around. If I want Marvin Mims, I'm not sitting around until the third round because I don't know if he'll make it.
Don't be cute. If you like a player, take him. If you think that player is worth the 44th pick in the draft, just take him with the 44th pick in the draft. We get too caught into what others are going to think of the value we got. Dude, your draft grade that you get after the draft, do you ever look at it once the season starts? Oh, well, he's not playing well, but we got an A+ for this in April. You know what I mean? Nobody ever cares. Like, if you went back and you drafted Tom Brady, number 1 overall in 1999, everybody's going to smack you for that pick during the moment. Yeah. But then you're gonna look like a genius later on. Like, just take the good players if you think somebody's good and worth the pick. Who cares what Mel Kiper has them on as they're at the big board? Who cares what any other team values that player at? If you and your coaching staff say, "Hey, this is one of the best 50 players, one of the best 30 players," if you feel like that's the guy that you need to pick, he's worth whatever pick you take him as. Yep. That, because at the end of the day, you're not judged on how well you use these draft picks immediately after it. You're judged and fired based on how many good players you select. And if you don't select good players, nobody's going to talk about, well, he got great value. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to care about the value if you ain't bringing home the players. You know what I mean? You want to save money, but not bring home groceries. It doesn't make sense. Right? Like, you gotta get good players in order for this to matter. And if you keep, hey, I know that player is gonna be really good, but yeah, he might be available at 90, and I think I can move back and get more value. No, take the good player. Yeah. If you're sitting there and you think Aaron Donald's gonna be good, take Aaron Donald where you think where you can, and don't say, I think I get Aaron Donald at 20 and then miss out on Aaron Donald. Was it worth it? You know what I mean? Was it worth it? It's not ever worth it. Just take the good player where you think the good player is going to go. Because if a player is good, guess what? We don't care where they're drafted. Myles Garrett was drafted in front of Pat Mahomes. Does anybody ever care about that? No. As much as Cleveland likes to whine and complain about stuff, has anybody really serious ever been, we drafted Myles Garrett over Pat Mahomes? No, because Myles Garrett is good at football. And when you draft a good football player, guess what? Nobody cares what you missed out on. Nobody cares. Not a single person does. To the point to where Myles Garrett is literally Akeem Olajuwon to Pat Mahomes is Jordan. Yeah. But you know what we do care about? Trading out at 12. Why? Because we ended up with Jabril Peppers and not Deshaun Watson. That's where it matters. If you get a good player, I promise you nobody cares. Nobody cares how you got that pick. Nobody cares what needed to happen. We don't care that we cut Brock Osweiler for no reason just to get a second-round pick. It was Nick Chubb. Who cares? Nope. I'm okay with it. If you get a good player, nobody cares. Nobody cares that Austin Corbett was selected before Nick Chubb. Nobody cares. For all intents and purposes, Nick Chubb was the only guy we picked in the second round that year. Yeah. Nobody cares. Nope. Nobody cares what the value of a pick was if you get a good player. Not a single person does. We act like it matters. It matters so little, dude. If I think Marvin Mims is worth the 44th pick, I'm taking him with the 42nd pick in the draft. That's it. Like, we try to look at this through the lens of draft gurus, and it's just like, just ask yourself, do you think that dude is going to be a great player? If the answer is yes, take the player. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just take him. Just take him. Not, I think he's going to be a great player, but I think I'm the only one that knows about it. Like, no, just take him. Because somebody who's smarter than you and not thinking as much as you will just be like, oh, he didn't want to take him? I'll take him. Okay, cool. You know?
I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you jumping on here. I'm with you on everything. Real quick before I let you out of here, can you let everybody know where to find you?
YouTube.com/Quincy Carrier, also YouTube.com/Worst Take, also YouTube.com/The Cast Burner. Follow me on Twitter to keep up with everything, and then check me out there.
All right, man. I appreciate it, guys. We'll see you again next week for another draft episode. But until then, go Browns.
All right.